Me now is Oklahoma Republican Congressman Tom Cole. Congressman Cole, it's good to have you with me right now, and let's talk about this because, as we know, all politics is local, and as we look at the state of Oklahoma, let's show everybody what the sequester impact would mean. 1,490 fewer children receiving vaccines, 300 domestic violence victims served, 300 less, that is, 298,000 funds for senior meals lost. As we look at the impact in other states, California, over 15,000 kids not getting vaccines. Florida, over 6,000 losing college financial aid. New York, 42 million cut from education, et cetera, et cetera. This just goes on around the country. Sir, earlier this month you said that the sequester was inevitable. Now, as we are in the sequester week itself, do you feel the same way?
I do. I think it's certainly possible to redistribute the cuts. Republicans did that twice last year. Certainly willing to sit down with the president and renegotiate where they're from. It's $85 billion out of a $3.5 trillion budget. So we certainly can minimize any discomfort if the president's willing to do that. But the cuts themselves are going to occur. They're written into law, just like the tax increase in January and the fiscal cliff was written into law. We worked with the president, redistributed those taxes. We should work here and redistribute the cuts. If the president will do that, he'll find a willing negotiating partner.
Is there any room for revenue? Is revenue a non-starter?
No, there's not. The president got revenue 6 weeks ago with no spending cuts whatsoever. This time it's spending cuts with no revenue. Down the road, we'll have another negotiation over the budget and the continuing resolution and eventually the debt ceiling again. But in this case, I don't think there's any room for revenue at all.
Sir, certainly the administration and the president, they continue to push their campaign to bring this to the people. Our first read puts out today that while both the president, or while both the Obama White House and congressional Republicans have warned about the dangers associated with these cuts and have blamed one another for their creation, this weekend saw no new plans of compromise, no new meetings, and no real work as Congress on its recess. And then we had Congressman Chris Van Hollen last hour talking to my colleague Chris Chansey. Take a listen.
As long as the Tea Party caucus in the House has the upper hand and are cheering on the idea of these across-the-board cuts, even though they will be very disruptive and hurt jobs in the economy, as long as they hold tight, then it's impossible to move forward.
Sir, do you agree with Congressman Van Hollen there, basically, that the Republicans are too willing to hold on to an ideology of rabid base than to work with across the aisle?
Well, I've worked across the aisle. I worked with the president and with Chris on the fiscal cliff. I worked on Hurricane Sandy relief. We're working with him right now on violence against women. But in this case, these cuts are in law. They're going to happen. The president needs to accept that and work with Republicans to redistribute them. That's an easy thing to do. This is not a catastrophic amount of money. It's less than 2.5% of the entire federal budget, $85 billion in the $3.5 trillion total budget. So we can certainly do a better job of where the cuts come. We can make them much, much less painful, but they do need to occur. We're running trillion-dollar deficits. We need to get our fiscal house in order.
When you talk about getting the political and fiscal house in order, one thing that the message has been a little muddled from the right, at least that's what the press coverage would demonstrate. If we look at what Politico has put out in reference to the Republican message, they say the message on sequester couldn't be clearer. The Republicans don't have a unified one. And then roll call. Does Boehner have the votes? Asking, would the Speaker have the collective body that he needs? Sir, what's your take on this? Is the Republican message a little too muddied right now?
No, I don't think so. Look, we think the federal government is too big and spends too much, and I think most Americans share that point of view. As for the votes, the Speaker demonstrated twice last year, once in May, again as recently as December, he had the votes to sequester. Now, again, we need a Democratic Senate, a Democratic President to be willing to accept that the cuts are inevitable. We're happy to negotiate with them. We've tried to do that. The Senate hasn't, passed any legislation, and frankly, the President hasn't even presented a plan. We're less than a week out. There's no presidential plan on the table as to what he would suggest. We've known this has been coming for over 18 months. We've tried to deal with it. The President and the Democrats in the Senate have not. So we're here largely because they wouldn't work with us. We're still willing to work with them.
Sir, real quickly, is a lot of this grandstanding just a ploy while a lot of last-minute backroom deals are getting done to, maybe a ploy to throw off the base that no new revenues are coming?
No, I don't think there is any backroom deal going on. And look, no new revenues are coming in this. There's opportunity. The president 6 weeks ago got hundreds of billions of dollars of revenue. Right now, it's time to, get some prudent cuts in government. These are not prudent cuts, but we can get there if they'll sit down and negotiate. If not, they're going to occur as scheduled. The president advocated for the sequester. This is what he signed into law. We're willing to work with him to change that, but again, we're not willing to put revenue on the table in this case. The cuts are going to occur.
Congressman Tom Cole of Oklahoma. Sir, thanks for making time for me this morning. I always appreciate it.
Thank you, Thomas.
Absolutely. And I just want to pass along